Welcome to the Vetiver Vibes podcast. We're your hosts, Nikki Fraser and Rachel Dean, certified clinical aromatherapists. We are excited to have you here on today's episode where you know that you'll get the best essential oil scoop.
This episode is brought to you by Essentria, a leading online school for aromatherapy. If you want to learn more about how to become a clinical aromatherapist, check out the courses at www.schoolofessentria.com. Welcome to this week's episode of Vetiver Vibes. Nikki Fraser here with Elisabeth Wilt. Elisabeth is a certified holistic women's health coach and doula based in Englefield, Saskatchewan. She specializes in supporting women over 30 during their reproductive years. Fruitful Womb Doula Service is a one-stop shop supportive help through fertility, pregnancy, breastfeeding, postpartum, menopause, and loss. She is also a yoni steaming facilitator and is passionate about whole body health, herbalism, and nourishment. When she isn't working as a doula and coach, she is a preschool teacher and lives on a farm with her family. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. You kind of have introduced me already. So yeah, I'm just Elisabeth.
Yeah, awesome. This topic is near and dear to my heart. I am trained as a doula as well. And I just love pregnancy. I love pregnancy. I love birth. I love all of that. So I absolutely, when I get to talk to other doulas, other people who are passionate about this topic, it just kind of lights me up a little bit more. But for all of our guests, we always ask, what is your favorite essential oil?
My favorite essential oil is either a mix of lavender, peppermint. Peppermint I always use for my headaches. I have a lot of headaches. So that's like a very good one to put on your forehead, and the chilling sensation. I'm like, yeah.
Absolutely. Nice. So diving into today's topic, I'd love to know what made you want to become a doula?
Well, I always ask if it's a long or short story.
Either one.
Okay. Well, the long story would probably be the fact that when I was 11 years old, I got my first period. And unlike a lot of other people, I was the type that I was like, oh my, this is so exciting. Like it was like a little kid on Christmas. I don't know why. I've always had a passion for like wanting to be an adult. So childhood, I was like, I'm over this. This is yesterday's news. Okay. Like this is the start of that. So I had seen my uncle in the mall even, and I had actually even told him about my period because I was like super excited. I'm like, guess what? I had to buy pads. So I was just that kind of person to like start with that. So I was reading all the books. I was like just diving in, pregnancy books, all of them. The librarians, they thought I was maybe a little weird. I don't know what they thought I was on, but I absolutely adored it. And so from there, I ended up going to like just kind of was deciding if I wanted to be a midwife or not. And I just am not the best with rash on the spot decisions. So I kind of from there decided, maybe that's just not the right field of me. So I actually went to university for business instead. And I was failing that miserably. Funny enough, because I ended up opening my own. But anyway, from there, that is when one of the local moms in my homeschooling group, she was saying that this school was having an opening for their cohort to be a doula. And I thought, oh, that's a course you take, when you're pregnant. And I was like, nothing of it. She's like, no, it's a career. And I'm like, wait, what? So I asked my father, I'm like, how upset would you be if I decided to drop out of university and go to do this instead? And he's like, as long as you'll be happy. And I have been happy since. I haven't looked back. So it's definitely been a great passion of mine.
Amazing. And there is a difference. You mentioned midwife and doula. So can you maybe go over what is the difference between the two? Because I think a lot of people don't necessarily recognize the difference or don't realize that a doula and midwife are very, very different.
They are. And it is like, probably if you ask any doula, they'll be like, this is the most repetitive question I've had to answer.
Yeah.
But a midwife is someone that actually helps the mother or the father or whoever delivering the baby. Mm-hmm. So she actually does the more hands-on, more medical type support. Whereas a doula, we're not that. We're more of like a birth coach. So our 3 pillars are the emotional support, the physical, and the informational. So those are our 3 pillars that we kind of live by. And my personal favorite of those is the emotional. I really love being there. And I always like to say I'm like a little mini therapist that just I get to listen, or your best friend that you would rant to about anything. So
Yeah. And like you said, there is that difference. The midwife is more medical. So you have the option of an OB or a midwife in Canada. So they just replaced the OB, and they're much more if you have kind of a standard pregnancy. A midwife is going to be amazing to have. You don't have any complications. You can birth at home. You can birth in the hospital. If they have access to a birthing center, you can go there, things like that. So they very much replace that OB, but still offer all the medical training as well.
yeah,
And that was for my last pregnancy. It was a surrogacy, and the intended parents in their country, they thought the doula was the midwife, and so they didn't understand. And so I had to really go over that of like, not all countries even have midwives, so they didn't understand this whole doula and what the purpose is, and
yeah,
that versus, like you said, the doula is really there just to offer that support to the
yeah.
birthing person, to their spouse, their partner, their children maybe who are there. Like, it's really what you need in the spot, kind of like you said, right? That little person who's there supporting you along the way, which is absolutely fantastic. So can you go over what are the benefits of having a doula?
Oh, well, that feels like a long list. I think the biggest one, though, that I'll say of a benefit is just having someone that is there to kind of support you in using your voice.
Mhm.
So a lot of times, regardless of where or who's helping you give birth, we often think that they're the person that just they call the shots, when a lot of the times it's you that calls the shots. And when you have a doula that's there and they really are wanting you to use your voice, so you start thinking more on yourself, a little bit on what things you want.
Mhm.
When I have prenatals, I really go over like all the different birth planning options, and from there, that kind of gives them a little bit more of the ability to listen to their voice. So what things do they want? Like, do they really want to give birth laying on their back? Like, is that something that really is like, oh yeah, I'll just do it. So, just
Not
even
many
just
do. Mind you, I actually did give birth on my back by choice. My second one.
okay.
I was half asleep. I did hypnobirthing. I was half asleep and I didn't want to move. So there are the odd, but it is,
Yeah.
I'm going to say 99.9% of the time, it is the worst position to birth on. So yeah, don't birth
Uh
on your
from what I've seen of people, it's just yeah. And to me, it doesn't make sense because we need gravity. So
right.
I always like to try to tell people, I'm like, and I think providers are starting to get it a little bit more. Some of them,
Most do. If
most,
you're not an OB, most
yeah,
do. I'll
yeah.
clarify that.
Yes. Well, I mean, I live in Saskatchewan of Canada. So some of our OBs are kind of shifting a little bit. They are
Nice.
accepting a little bit.
Most
Uh,
stars here are not yet, and OBs are fantastic for a lot of things. I don't
yes.
want our listeners to think that we're harping on OBs because
Oh,
that's
yeah,
not at
yeah.
all the case. They just have rules that they need to follow. Unfortunately,
Exactly.
even I've had some OBs who say, I wish, but I can't. So they're sometimes the
More
thoughts
hands
there,
are
but
tied.
they're yeah, yeah,
Which hopefully maybe one day podcasts like this will get to the hierarchy of even that kind of
right,
system to change some
right,
of the rules.
absolutely, absolutely.
But
Uh,
yeah, those are just some of the benefits of really having that support. And like you said before, it's just getting extra hands to kind of help you along with things, someone to have an extra little bit of brain and information to give you. I think that's one of the biggest benefits.
When you're there supporting someone birthing, what are kind of the top things that you're usually doing?
Position changes. I'm often like, if they're kind of like getting really sick of that one, I'll kind of recommend like, hey, would you like to try this one? Or would you like to try to go in the shower or massage?
Mhm.
I had one time a client where she had complimented my hands, that they were very soft. So my entire role, since she felt how soft they were, was to touch her like on her back. Or there was one time where just the repetitive motion of me dragging like 2-3 fingers along her arm and shoulder, that really was just kind of like a tune things out and focus on that instead, a little bit of a sensation. So oftentimes, as much as possible, I like to get my hands involved wherever I can. I also like to use the rebozo wherever possible. So those are just the top three that I could come think of. If not, it's normally getting water or snacks. I have done that a few times.
Absolutely, because you don't realize, one, how thirsty you can be. And, if you're running a marathon, I always like to compare it to a marathon. If you're running a marathon, you can't run a marathon on empty. You need fuel. Birth is the same thing. You need fuel to be able to birth. And without that fuel, you're just gonna exhaust out. So yeah, absolutely. Getting food is a fantastic thing. I know I'm trying to think back of my doulas. I actually, pardon me, felt bad for my last birth, my second doula. I had 2 doulas out of my 4 pregnancies, and I literally just hung off her to birth. So you're talking about gravity. I literally had my arms around her neck, and because all of a sudden I was like, nope, baby's coming now. And I just literally hung off her, and I just birthed hanging off of her. And I'm like, probably not how we expected this birth to go, but it is what it is.
Birth is the most unexpected thing ever. Like, even though we can have conversations about like, oh, what would we do with this situation, or what would we do in that situation, and it will not go at all like we thought. Or, there's just so many unexpected. Like I said, I live in Saskatchewan, so it's very rural. So, I am just waiting. Like, I have it in my head mentally that one day we're going to have to just pull on the side of the road, and it's going to be in the car. Like, I just know one day it's going to happen, because like some of my clients are like 45 minutes plus an hour or hour and a half away from a hospital. And, if you just leave a little too late,
Absolutely.
oopsie, or things speed up sometimes, it just
You don't
crazy.
realize how quickly my one birth, from the moment I walked through the hospital doors, got upstairs, the parents arrived literally about 5 minutes before he came earthside. They almost missed it because it went so quickly.
Just 1, 2, 3.
It was, I think, in under an hour, he was earthside. I'm like, whew, this is the fastest one yet. I'm like, let's do this again. I was like, that was great.
Well, when they go fast, that's why, like, I always try to explain to some of my clients too, like, because I'm further away from some of them, like, there's a chance that I may even miss it. So I always like to try to explain to them, it's like, that's not a bad thing, because that means that it went so smooth. Like, I always say that's like a great benefit right there. If you could get it. Oh, I'm as much as I would be very sad if I had to miss it, I would be at the same time like, yay!
Because it means it was uncomplicated.
Yeah.
Everything was going smooth. Baby knew exactly what to do. Mom knew exactly what to do. And typically, it's more the emotional, psychological part of, if you weren't expecting it, that is more the after effect of needing support that way versus physically, because birth is natural. Yeah. Our bodies are meant to birth. And so if everything is going, you have an uncomplicated pregnancy and it goes quickly, that's fantastic.
Exactly. And a lot of times we hear that, we need all these outside support interventions, things like that. And so when you have, and those are totally necessary in some situations, but right off the get-go, I don't need to be like, oh, you're expecting, well, you're going to need an induction, and you're going to need this done, or maybe there's going to be forceps needed. Like, those aren't automatically the standard, I guess, what I would say. So when we get to teach women like you in your position as well, when we get to teach them that, like, hey, you've got this, trust yourself, believe in yourself, it kind of helps. So that really puts a notion of believing in yourself can make you more empowered to do the things.
Yeah. And I find, absolutely. And that's where I find, like, Hollywood, it does not depict birth how a typical birth is. And then you have that fear that gets put into your mind if you're pregnant, if it's your first birth, or you maybe had, maybe a hiccup, or, something didn't go as you had planned. And then you have that in your mind. then you're kind of stuck in that fear pattern, maybe because all you see on TV are women screaming bloody murder and swearing at their spouse of "you're never doing this to me again," and all these crazy things of like, and that's not the norm. You can have a peaceful birth. I have had 3 amazing peaceful births out of my 4, and even my one that had a hiccup afterwards. The birth itself, it was absolutely amazing. I was calm. I squatted beside the hospital bed, and I remember pivoting, being like, "Oh wait, my midwife actually needs to like receive the baby," and I was able to like pivot my body because I'm like, she can't really receive the baby if I'm squatting this way, and like it can be beautiful and peaceful and amazing, but you have to train yourself for that also.
Yes, and like you were saying with Hollywood, I remember when I first started becoming a doula, we were rewatching the movie uh, Daughter of the Bride, or I'm trying to think what it was called now. It's with Steve Martin.
Yes.
It's from like the 90s or something like that.
Yeah.
And the mother and the daughter are pregnant at the same time. And Steve Martin and who's that other one that's funny from? I can't
It was
remember
Father of the
exactly.
Bride, though, was the
Oh,
movie.
thank you. That's the title.
Yeah, I'm horrible with actor
Martin
names.
Short.
Yes.
Martin Short, he's in there. So it's hilarious because they're all running around, like, panicking. And I remember my brother, because he was like 16, 15 at the time, and he was like, "Oh, this doesn't really happen, right, Lisa?" And he looked my way because, and I'm like, no, no. I mean, there may be some chaos sometimes. I mean, if there's 2 different women pregnant at the same time, maybe that would give a form of a little chaos.
And both going into
Labor at the
both going
same
to
time.
delivery at the same time. It's like, where do I go? Who do I support?
Yeah, exactly.
That would be
So
funny.
that chaos I could totally see be there. But the speed and the, oh my, we need to go to the hospital like right now, otherwise it's all over.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I always laugh and it's like, my water broke. And it's like, we need to go this second. I'm like,
yep.
you got time. You got time. Relax. Put your
Absolutely.
feet up. Go have yourself a glass of water. Have a bath. Like, read a
Yep.
book. Go to the movies if you want. I wanted to go to the movies during my first uh, labor, and my husband laughed at me. And I'm like, I'm totally down with going to the movies. I'm like, we got time, we got hours, man, and
Yeah,
we
like,
did for that one. But yeah, he laughed at me on that one.
well,
But
it's interesting to think, because that when you watch things like that, then your mindset is, oh, if the water breaks, we go immediately. Like, if I don't, the baby's going to be born right here.
yeah,
And so when you give the information like, hey, you got a little time, we don't need to really like panic rush here. Like, and that alone can help relieve some of those stressors that can make birth more tense. And we need that to like not be so tense.
exactly. Awesome. And now, do you ever use any aromatherapy in your practice with your clients?
I do. I usually use a diffuser if they ask. I have one in my bag, but I was recently just informed that I shouldn't. So
So we're laughing because this is actually our second take of this
yeah,
podcast. We recorded this probably about a month ago, and somehow the recording disappeared. And
yeah, I
so
couldn't help
yeah,
myself.
it's but yeah, no, I actually don't recommend diffusers because when baby comes earthside, the first thing they want to do is bond with parents, and babies do that best through scent. So if we're diffusing essential oils in the air, that covers the parent's natural scent. And so they can't, not that they can't find their food easier because, you've got that magic hour. They're sniffing for breast milk and doing the crawl up. So it'll help cover that scent of breast milk, help cover the scent of parents that is so important for bonding. And also for parents to baby, right? Like having, when mom smells that their newborn baby's head, like that in itself helps with colostrum and milk production. And so again, it would be masking that scent. And also what you like during pregnancy is so different in labor and birthing. When you're birthing, you might have an oil that you absolutely love during pregnancy, and as soon as those hormones spike for birth, it might be the worst smell on earth for you, which is what happened to me on my second birth. It was like my blend that was my saving grace with a toddler, not even a toddler. He was 18 months when my second was born. And so it was, it's tough when you have two under two. And but I had this blend I absolutely loved. It was, I used it every day, just a nice little smell to kind of reground myself, especially end of pregnancy. And I was so excited to use it during birth. I couldn't chuck that thing out the window fast enough type thing. It was so disgusting. It honestly was so putrid of an aroma that if we had diffused it or put it on me topically or things like that, I don't know what I would have done because I just couldn't get rid of it fast enough. And so our hormones do so many fun things to us when we're birthing that we might all of a sudden not like an aroma anymore. And we can't dissipate that when it's diffusing or even when we apply things topically.
Well, I have used it like with those massages that I've told you about.
Yep.
Like I normally mix like a coconut oil and use that one. But yeah, I was prior to our conversation having that as a use.
Yeah. But yeah, in a massage, especially when you were talking about like those gentle massage or those hip squeeze massages, a nice little bit of, I always used black pepper because black pepper was just my go-to hip massages, things like that. I loved it. Or the lavender or sweet orange, neroli, things like that I love to use during those just to help calm and massage. Awesome. Do you have one that's kind of like a more go-to?
I have had the peppermint been used a lot. That has been a really good scent that people have liked. Like even sometimes I would put it on the pillowcase, and just the smell of that kind of helps sometimes because you know yourself too, nausea, right?
Yeah.
With labor, so that one a lot of times people pick. I normally kind of have a little display, so they kind of get to pick which one they like a little bit.
Nice.
I have the Yang Lang. I never know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm like, it sounds like there should be the L's pronounced, and so I do say it. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of what the other ones are in my bag. I have so many that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But yeah, the most used are those two that we mentioned.
Nice, yeah. I like to use lemon a lot for nausea. And then the cotton ball trick. So I always like to have cotton balls where you just put a drop on the cotton ball and then they can kind of hold that and smell that. So like have it in a little baggie or something so they can kind of smell it in the baggie. This way, it's something easy that they can toss if they don't like the aroma of it all of a sudden again. And then baby doesn't smell it afterwards either. So
who is the tips for, me or them?
Everybody.
Teaching me fun stuff at the same time. No, I don't know if I have. I don't think I have lemon actually, so that's good to know to add to the bag. I do have like an orange citrus kind of one blend.
That'll be good too. Yeah, I always find citrus. It just helps like shift that mood, and it does actually. There's a lot. There are studies that have shown lemon, especially in like first trimester, which. Let's be real, morning sickness is one, not a first trimester only, and two, not a morning thing, which I absolutely hate the name morning sickness, but it is what it is. And a lot of times it comes back during birthing also. So, first trimester you have it, it disappears, and all of a sudden you're birthing, and it's like, and it's back. Yay.
Thanks.
But yeah, I find lemon always worked the best for that. It was... And there's been some great studies that show it's really, really good for nausea. So
note to self to add it.
And what about, I know we were talking about earlier too, like birth plans, things like that, on just kind of like empowering the person who's birthing. What are your thoughts behind birth plans?
Well, a lot of people don't love the term birth plan because can we plan the unpredictable? But I always like to tell people it's a way to have conversations about all of the different options a little bit. So I'm always kind of team birth plan. I have a birth planning prenatal, and I recently just had one again. And the amount of times where there are options or thoughts that never came up as an option. Like here, the NICU is actually in the biggest city. So you may have to get your baby to go 2 hours away from you if, or even further sometimes to go to the NICU. So, there are a lot of topics of conversation, like who would go with, and just, I had brought it up as a subject and they were like, I never even thought of that. And so it's not really about planning, as I like to say. It's always more of just about, what's a guideline? What are we knowing for options? Do you want an episiotomy? Do we want forceps or a vacuum? Or, what are a little bit of our wants? And then in the moment, what will we do if our wants weren't being met? And could we get the next alternative?
Yeah.
So having that topic beforehand of like, hey, here's all this information you probably didn't think about before, just
Right.
brought up as a subject really can give them such a guidance to go for it. So I'm definitely team birth plan, or, guideline, or however you like to say birth wishes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, because the first time you have this discussion isn't when you're 6 centimeters dilated.
Yeah.
That's not the time to be thinking of answering these questions. And that's where, everyone in the room should be on board of what
Exactly.
it is. Again, like you said, things can be flexible. They should be flexible. It's not
Yes.
like it's written in stone and like these are what it must be. However, I've totally seen in mom groups where it's like, this is what it is and this is what it's going to be. Well, baby might have other ideas. I hate to
Yeah.
break it to you, but realistically, baby has the final say. And if baby chooses different to come at a different time, or to come that, isn't in a convenient way for you, then that's what's going to happen, unfortunately. Surprise. And so, yeah, I agree that that guideline is really, really nice. And what about like when you get challenged by the practitioner in the room? So, you're there with your client. They have specifically stated they want maybe holistic support, or they don't want to have an epidural, or they don't want to have an episiotomy, or they don't want to be monitored 24/7, because let's be real, that's not needed either. And they're just kind of, the person who's birthing is not being heard. Any tips on that?
Well, normally before the birth happens, I like to, with the birth planning prenatal, get everyone kind of like little bits themes to their roles. So I always like to really, if they have a partner, try to be like they will be your main guide and voice. There's different types of doulas, and I always like to say that I know that I'm not your voice. So if I speak up and say like, "Hey, she said you didn't want this," what are they going to listen to me? I'm just technically a nobody. I'm not, your mother. I am not your partner. Like, I don't
Mm.
really have the same type of voice as the partner would, or other people in the
Yeah.
room that you might hire or have there. So I always like to try to give them all the voice before labor a little bit. So, I really try to encourage partner, like, hey, if you hear, your partner is upset and just really does not want something, stand up for her. Say to them that, we don't want this, or, need more time to think. I love that one. I'm always like, and sometimes I'll prod that a little bit too. I'll be like, hey, did we just need a few more minutes, or did you want to think about this a little longer, just as a question?
Yeah.
I love to play dumb. I always like to say, I'm like, when I'm there, you might think I'm stupid because I'm just sitting there and I'm like, oh, but did we talk about that before? Or what was that you were saying about this subject? And I love it because, it just gets them to then remember, oh, yeah, I have a say. I don't need to do something. So that's my main thing, is really try to have the conversations beforehand. If you are going to have a few more people in the room, maybe you want your mother, or, some people want their father. Like, just, you really need to have the conversations beforehand of what you want. Get everyone, like you said, on board to know the same rhythm, because sometimes we need a bodyguard team. We need to pretend we're the president of the United States and have 12 bodyguards around us. That is always my favorite motto, that when you go, you gotta have a really, really good bodyguard system in place. And, it's more of just that when there are more witnesses, if anything, they're less likely to really go against what you want when there are more witnesses, because it's easy to say, oh, this happened, certain thing just between two people, but when you've got like 3 other people that all saw the same thing, like, their chances of being a little more difficult would be a little less, I think, just because more voice, right?
Yeah, and more likely to listen. And this is different versus a medical emergency. What we're talking about right
Yes,
now
yeah.
isn't like a medical emergency of, something drastic is happening and, medical team has to rush in. Totally, totally different from what we're talking about right now of just, sometime being pressured into birthing on your back, let's say, or taking an epidural when you don't want an epidural. You're handling birthing just, okay, and that type of thing. And it's just, having those reminders sometimes is important, because what's most important is the person who's birthing and how they're comfortable, not the
Yep.
timeline of the doctor or the midwife or
Yep.
whoever the professional is that's in the birth room. You're not going off their timeline, but you're going off baby's timeline, and that's what's
Yes.
more important.
And sadly, I have witnessed a birth where it was even a midwife, which I was really surprised at the time. And they were like giving birth in the hospital, but the midwife was present. And it was like during every single contraction, she would go, "Oh, I don't think you're handling these well. You should get an epidural." And it was like every time during the contraction. And if you know that little voice where you hear it like consistently in your head, that's going to make you feel like your power is slowly. It's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not doing good at this. This is not working."
Yeah.
And she even had like the birth tub. And it was like, I thought she was doing great. But so anyway, the midwife, I don't know what had happened. She had left for a little bit. And I like looked at her. I was like, "Hey, is this something you really want? Like you told me you really, really did not want an epidural at all costs." And she's like, "Yeah, I don't think I'm doing good at this anymore. And I should get the epidural." And I was like, my heart hurt because I felt like, and sometimes doulas, we're there witnessing things. And we, like I said, we're not anything really important. So we're just there to witness things happen. And I almost wanted to be like, maybe we should try another half an hour of this. But she was at that point just feeling really given up, like she
Yeah.
really just felt that like, I don't see the point anymore. I guess I'm not doing. And then the downhill from the cascade of
Yeah.
interventions, and so it was just like really disheartening. I was up 3 days with her, and I remember coming home, and it was like 8 a.m. in the morning. Could not go to sleep till almost midnight that night because I was still so wired about everything that I had seen. Just knowing,
Yeah, but
just
yeah,
knowing
no,
how things
to
play.
take away her power that way of telling her she's not doing it when she
Yeah.
actively is, that's a little
Well,
heartbreaking.
especially if it's during a contraction. Like, I'm always
Yeah,
like, if I've got a
it can wait
migraine,
a
this is
minute.
not the time to ask me which room should be tiled. Like, don't start coming up with things in the middle of a very painful moment. Like, maybe wait a little bit.
Right? You can wait 1 minute to ask your question until
Yeah.
that surge has passed.
Yeah.
Like, very rare do they last longer than a minute, even if it's 2 minutes. You can wait a moment, take a breath,
Like,
and then ask your question. Or if it's during that time, ask the partner, hey,
yeah.
we need to talk about this. So after this surge is done, let's discuss this.
Yeah.
So that it's at least, not forgotten, it's on the table, things like that. Absolutely. Absolutely. And now, if people don't want to have an epidural, let's say, or medical interventions, what kind of things do you often support with?
Well, I have a TENS machine, so I
Mhm.
always bring that along with me. So there's like the L10s or the OB10s. Like I said, I mentioned the Rebozo. I have the comb. I have a lot of like heat and cold packs because you never know. Some people get chills. Some people feel
Right.
like, oh, so hot. And if possible, like if the birthing suite does have like baths or showers, like get in. I'm always like, let's try the water. I
Mhm.
remember one time this client had just stalled. Like it really was going slow and it was stalling. And I was like, why don't we try the shower? Do you want to go for like get that a little bit on? She almost gave birth in the shower. It was so fast. I was like, oh my, like it, don't drink a hot chocolate extra large from Tim Hortons right before you think something might happen. I remember I was like in misery that whole time. I was like, never doing that again. Repeat to any partner going for they do not drink actively large beverages
That's
before
funny.
the action.
That's so funny. Yeah, and it is. Water's so it's calming. It
Yeah.
takes the stress off the muscles, off the mind.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's just that mind block that happens, and then once you can relax, it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
birth can start again. I know like nipple stimulation is also another good one. If they have
Yes.
a breast pump, they can actually pump, which will help reactivate a lot of those hormones to help birth again. But yeah, the TENS machine is always really, really great. I have one, but I never used it. I didn't end up using it. I didn't end up needing it, which was a good thing.
Yeah.
But I do have one. And I was always like, oh, I kind of wanted to use it.
And those are so hard to come by now because they stopped like making them here in Canada or getting them. So there was like even a local doula next to me and she was retiring. So she was giving like all of her stuff for 150. I'm like, sold.
Grab that.
Like, and
Yeah.
the only thing that I was like stand out really needed was that TENS machine because I'm like, I will definitely take a backup. And
Yeah.
hospitals don't have it as a means of something. So
No.
it is looking, and if you're not hiring a doula, there are people that rent it out. So like look in your area to see if there is a TENS rental because a lot of the times there are, and it's not a bad rate. I mean, some of them I seen for like I think it was $80 for 5 weeks that you get it.
Yeah.
So
No, that's really, really great.
there's always options out there a little bit. So as long as you know the different tips.
Yes. And what made me think too, what you said earlier was a comb.
Yeah.
And just this past week, I saw a mom in my local group asking, about different things, and people were suggesting combs. And she was like, "Is there a specific comb?" And people were actively recommending that she needed to go out and buy this comb from a birthing agency. I don't know where it was from, but it was like a ridiculous amount price for a comb. I'm like, go to the dollar store and buy any old comb.
Those are mine in my bag.
I'm like, a 99-cent comb from the dollar store is going to work. I mean, nothing actually is at the dollar store is $1 anymore.
No.
But find any kind of cheap comb, and it's just so if you ever think like, does it need to be a special comb? No, it doesn't.
Oh, hearing that just makes me a little sad because people. I mean, I adore some of the fancy combs too. I've literally been like, maybe I'll even just like get that for myself for Christmas or something, even though I don't need it right now. But at the same time, like you said, the tool is just the pressure points.
Yes.
So it is literally just holding on to a comb because those combs. And I love the value packs that you get like a bunch in there because sometimes they do snap and, or you clutch it really, really tight.
Or some of them have like the comb parts are closer together versus farther apart.
Yes.
So it can feel a little different depending on what kind you have, things like that. But yeah, like
exactly.
Just get any comb. It just when you mentioned that popped into my head, which then also made me think there's also no for any new parents listening, there's also no special sponge that you need to bathe your baby after baby's born. I had this with my first set of IPs. They actively thought that they had to buy a special sponge to bathe baby. And I was sitting there, I had the doctors working on me, and I'm yelling across the room, "Who told you this? That's not true. Any old washcloth will do. Like any clean washcloth will do. Like you don't need anything special to birth baby. Just hold baby and bathe them." I'm like, and wait several weeks too. Which I've done since my first birth, where I'm like, no, you don't need to bathe baby either, like within 24 hours. But yeah, all that, I find the specialty stuff out there that they get for pregnancy and new parents, babies are just extravagant. And
well, it's really well marketed. Like you see it online, like oftentimes, we have social media as our biggest influence. In the past, a few generations before, it was TV. Like that was really Hollywood, whatever. But now it's influenced by social media. So if you see the top people with the most millions of fans and they just are pregnant, they're, oh, I bought this Frida thing and I got this fancy maternity gown. And you're sitting there and you're like, this whole thing is going to cost thousands because you're like, this is what you need. When in terms, that's all just the influence of it. Like there are great, wonderful things out there, a dime a dozen that you can find. But at the same time, the bare minimum, if you think of our ancestors, was you had hot water and towels and, some clamps. And so you could think that labor really doesn't need all the stuff. It's just pretty. It's nice stuff. It's like when you get a fancy dress or a fancy purse or something, it's just accessories really to birth. And like you said, dollar store combs, any old washcloth, like
it's gonna work.
Yep.
It's gonna work. And that brings me back to the value of a doula. A lot of people don't see the value of a doula, and I hope this podcast has really showed the value of a doula. But we go out as new parents and spend thousands on the best of the best cribs, the best of the best car seat, the best of the best stroller, the best of the best clothes, and all these cute little outfits, and bows and tutus and suspenders and blah 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 blah. That's great because you want to have the best when baby's here. What about the best when you're pregnant? What about the best during birth itself? So remember that. Everyone thinks about pregnancy. Everyone thinks about when baby's earthside and actually there, and you want to like baby the baby, right? You want to pamper the baby. But don't forget the birth itself. This is so crucial. So I'm going to kind of shout this of remember your own birth and how doulas can be beneficial. And I really, really hope that we were able to highlight some of that in this episode. And I think that's a great spot to kind of wrap this up. Before we say goodbye, any last tips that you would like to share with our listeners?
Even if you can't get a doula, for whatever reason, maybe it's not accessible in your area or whatever it be, really just look to yourself, ask what you want, and how you can start learning to say no, how learning to talk to people of what you actually want. Those boundaries are just so important when it comes to, beyond your medical care team, goes into family or into however you want it. Just really learn to say no, even if it is as simple as like, do you want peas with your dinner? No. just say no and learn to have that, that it's okay. You're not going to get in trouble for saying no. Like, it's just because you don't want it. So I think that's where I'll end it, because I think that's really important, and I've been having to really repeat that lately. So
I love that. We don't say no enough. So that is a very great reminder. Thank you. And if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
They pretty much could just type up my name. I'm a little bit everywhere. Or they could type in @FruitfulWomb_Doula. I've got lots of social medias with lots of tips and information. I love to give information for free. I have a website, fruitfulwomb.ca. So I really hope that regardless of me or you or anyone, just get the help you need to make everything go smoothly, hopefully.
Right? Absolutely. And we'll have all your contact information in the show notes below. So thank you so much for coming on, and thank you to all of our listeners. I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Bye.
Thank you for spending your time with us here at Vetiver Vibes. This episode was brought to you by Essentria, a leading online aromatherapy school. Don't forget to check out some of our free resources at www.schoolofessentria.com.
If you love this episode or you got a lot of value out of it, please make sure you share it with someone in your community who you think would enjoy it too. If you haven't already subscribed or reviewed the show yet, you can go on over to your preferred streaming platform and hit subscribe, then leave a review. This is the best way to help support us, and we appreciate it. Email us with a screenshot of your review, and we will send you a free guided meditation as our way to say thank you.
This podcast is for information purposes only. We are certified clinical aromatherapists and holistic health professionals. If you have a medication concern, please refer to your health team. Everyone's health is unique to themselves, so the topics and suggestions stated may or may not apply directly to you.